The arena was silent, except for the faint hum of the hovering platforms above. The Predator, a towering alien with glowing eyes and muscles that seemed carved from stone, stood in the center. Around him, dozens of smaller aliens were gathered, whispering among themselves. Every eye in the arena was fixed on the tiny human, who stood on the opposite side. He looked calm, too calm. The Predator stepped forward, his massive clawed hand tapping the ground. "I will crush you," he said, his voice deep and threatening. The ground beneath the human began to tremble, and the gravity field increased slightly. The human's feet pressed harder against the floor. Most creatures would have screamed, would have been pressed into the metal floor like a pancake. But the human did not. He tilted his head and smiled, as if the Predator had invited him to tea instead of trying to kill him. Then, without any hurry, he reached into his backpack and pulled out a small packet of snacks. The Predator froze. The crowd gasped. Whispers filled the air. He is eating snacks while the champion raises gravity to crush him? The human tore open the packet and casually popped a piece into his mouth. "Crunchy," he said, nodding to himself, "but could use more salt." The Predator's claws flexed. He increased the gravity again, doubling the pressure. The human's knees bent slightly, his back pressed to the ground. His arms strained against the invisible weight pressing down. And still, he chewed his snacks. The Predator felt confusion creeping in. How could he withstand this? He growled. He had faced warriors from dozens of worlds. Some could resist strong gravity. Some could dodge faster than light. But none had ever sat down and eaten snacks while he tried to crush them. The human glanced at the Predator. "Is this your best?" he asked calmly, crumbs falling from his mouth. The Predator roared in frustration, and the gravity surged higher. The human's body sank closer to the floor. His face strained. His fingers trembled. And still he smiled. He slowly ate another snack, chewed deliberately, and licked his fingers. The alien crowd went silent. Some were even stepping back, shocked by what they saw. Suddenly, the human leaned back and sat cross-legged, completely relaxed, as though he were on a picnic rather than facing death. The Predator could not believe his eyes. He turned to the hovering council of alien elders. "What trick is this?" he demanded. "No trick," one of them whispered, barely audible over the hum of the arena. "Humans are different." Different? The Predator did not understand. He had crushed millions of beings across the galaxy, yet this small creature seemed untouchable. The human, now eating his third snack, finally spoke clearly. You can increase gravity all you want. It won't hurt me. I learned a thing or two on Earth about pressure and balance." The Predator's jaw dropped. Earth? He had heard of the humans. Small, fragile, and weak. Hardly anything to respect. And yet here stood one, calm and fearless, mocking him with a handful of snacks. The Predator flexed his muscles and raised the gravity to extreme levels. The human's body bent as though he were made of rubber. He groaned softly, struggling under the weight. Every eye in the arena was on him. He could have screamed. He could have begged. Every instinct told him to panic. But the human did not. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and slowly reached into his bag again. Another snack. He opened it with care and ate it deliberately, enjoying each bite. Then he leaned back, relaxed further, and smiled at the Predator. The Predator's anger rose. He was a master of combat, a being whose very presence inspired fear. Yet, he was being mocked by this tiny creature. He turned his gaze to the alien crowd. "Watch carefully," he said. "This human will break." The crowd leaned forward. Some of the younger aliens whispered, "Will he survive?" The human's calm confidence was not arrogance. It was strategy. While the Predator had focused all his energy on crushing him, the human had analyzed the arena. He noticed the cracks in the floor forming under extreme gravity. He noted the position of the hovering platforms. He calculated the timing of the gravity pulses. Every detail mattered. The Predator grew impatient. He raised gravity even more. The human's body flattened against the floor, bones straining under the immense weight. Yet, instead of panic, a faint smile remained on his face. The crowd gasped again. Even the elders leaned closer. None had ever seen a human react this way. The human slowly sat up, his back straight, and began clapping. "Nice try," he said, his voice calm, almost cheerful. "But it's going to take more than gravity to beat me." The predator felt rage, confusion, and disbelief all at once. His massive form trembled as he tried to understand this tiny creature. Then, as if to prove a point, the human stood up fully. He stretched his arms, yawned, and pulled out another snack. The predator's jaw dropped further. He realized something terrifying. The human was not afraid, not even a little. The alien council murmured among themselves. "This human could be the turning point," one elder whispered. "Perhaps we underestimated them." The predator took a step forward. "I will end this," he growled. He increased gravity to the maximum the arena could handle. The floor began to crack under the pressure. Sparks flew as metal panels warped. The crowd gasped. This was the ultimate test. The human blinked, then casually sat down again. He opened his snack, unbothered by the immense force pressing him down. He chewed slowly, deliberately, as though he had all the time in the galaxy. The predator's confusion turned into desperation. How is he still? The human looked up, crumbs falling from his lips. "You know," he said, "sometimes pressure is good. It makes snacks taste better." He smiled cheekily. The predator roared in frustration, throwing a powerful punch at the air. The human, however, ducked, not out of fear, but with perfect timing and calm reflexes. Every move he made was precise, conserving energy while avoiding harm. The predator's warriors, elite soldiers of countless worlds, watched with shock. "He is small, fragile, yet unstoppable," one whispered. Then came the turning point. The human reached into his bag one last time. The predator, already tense and focused, did not notice the small device in the human's hand. With a calm motion, the human pressed a button. The gravity field faltered for a moment. Panels on the arena shifted. The predator staggered, unprepared. The human looked at him with bright, steady eyes. "You see," the human said softly, "sometimes the greatest strength is patience and calm." The predator's mouth opened, but no words came. He had faced thousands of warriors, but none had faced him like this. None had remained calm, smart, and prepared. The crowd erupted, not in cheering, but in stunned silence. Aliens whispered to each other. The human, he is different. The human stood fully upright, unshaken. He ate the last piece of his snack, wiped his hands, and smiled at the predator. "Are you done, or shall we continue?" The predator could only stare. Rage and confusion twisted his features. He had underestimated humans, and now the truth was impossible to ignore. Even the elders leaned forward, murmuring in amazement. Perhaps Earthlings are not as weak as we thought. The human, finally, took a deep breath and sat down. He looked around the arena, relaxed and unafraid. "This was fun," he said softly, "but I have more snacks waiting." For the first time in his life, the predator felt something he had never felt before: uncertainty. How could a human, so small, so fragile, stand against the might of an alien warrior? And not just stand, but remain calm, clever, and unbroken? That was the unexpected turning point. The arena fell into tense silence. The predator stared, unsure of what to do next. The human had not only survived, he had turned impossible into a casual challenge. And for the first time, everyone in the arena realized this human was not ordinary. The arena was still buzzing from the shock of the human's calm defiance. Even the predator, a creature who had conquered worlds and crushed the strongest of beings, found himself struggling to comprehend what he had just witnessed. The human, tiny and seemingly fragile, had endured maximum gravity, had sat down and eaten snacks while being pressed to the floor, and now he was smiling. The crowd of aliens remained silent, not out of respect, but out of disbelief. How could such a small creature stand against the champion of the galaxy? The predator flexed his massive arms. His muscles rippled under the skin, and his claws scraped the metal floor. "This is not over," he growled. "I will end this, and the next time there will be no calm, no snacks, no tricks." The human looked at him, calm as ever. He dusted off his hands, smiled, and popped another snack into his mouth. "I guess you didn't expect humans to be clever," he said softly, chewing slowly. The predator's eyes narrowed. "Clever? You are just a weak, fragile creature." Cleverness will not save you now. And with that, he raised his hand and signaled to the hovering platforms above. Instantly, alien warriors descended, elite combatants, each taller and stronger than the last. Their armor gleamed, their weapons hummed, and their eyes burned with deadly intent. The Predator's plan was simple: overwhelm the human with sheer numbers and strength. The human watched them calmly. He did not flinch. He did not panic. He simply observed. His eyes scanned the arena, taking note of every shadow, every platform, every weak point in the floor. Each detail, no matter how small, became a piece of the puzzle he was about to solve. The first warrior leapt forward, charging at the human with a spiked club. The crowd held its breath. The human bent his knees slightly and stepped aside. The warrior's club slammed into the floor, sending sparks flying. The human barely moved, keeping his balance perfectly. The second warrior swung a massive blade. The human ducked, narrowly avoiding the strike. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small metal rod. He tossed it with perfect aim, and it struck the warrior's armor, causing a loud clang. The warrior stumbled, surprised at the human's precision. The third warrior fired a plasma shot. The human rolled to the side, grabbed a nearby panel from the floor, and used it as a shield. The shot missed, hitting the wall behind it with a loud explosion. The Predator's brow furrowed. "Impossible," he muttered. "How can a human fight like this?" The human, still calm, ate another snack. "You rely on strength," he said quietly, "but brains win battles." The crowd gasped again. Even the younger aliens whispered among themselves. "The human, he is too smart." The Predator raised gravity again, hoping to crush the human's movements. The floor groaned under the pressure, metal bending and cracking. The human's knees pressed into the ground, his arms strained. But he did not panic. Instead, he used the pressure to his advantage. He pressed his hands into the floor and pushed with all his strength. The cracks beneath him widened, creating small shock waves that sent the warriors stumbling. He rolled forward, dodging another strike, and kicked one of the warriors into a nearby wall. The clang echoed through the arena. The Predator's eyes widened. He had not expected the human to use gravity against them. He had thought pressure would break the human, but instead, it became the human's weapon. The human looked up, smiling faintly. "Gravity isn't always your enemy," he said. "Sometimes, it helps you stand taller." The Predator growled, frustration mixing with disbelief. He summoned more warriors, faster, stronger, deadlier. The human faced them calmly, analyzing every move. Every swing, every step, every attack was observed. He began to predict their movements, moving with a rhythm that was almost impossible to follow. The warriors struck again and again, but the human used their own energy against them. When one swung too hard, he ducked and let the warrior's momentum carry him past, using a small kick to send the attacker off balance. When another fired a plasma gun, he used a reflective panel to redirect the blast. Every attack was countered, every strike avoided. The Predator's jaw tightened. "Enough," he snarled. He raised his hand again and summoned the arena's main gravity core. The metal walls shook. Sparks flew. The floor groaned. The human's body sank under the immense force, and for a moment, it seemed as if he might finally break. But he did not. Instead, he reached into his bag one last time. His fingers grasped a small device, sleek and metallic. He pressed a button. The gravity field faltered. Panels shifted. Sparks shot into the air. The human stood upright, unaffected, while the warriors stumbled and struggled to regain balance. The crowd gasped in amazement. Even the Predator, the champion, froze. What is this?" he growled. The human smiled. "I have a few tricks of my own," he said simply. "You thought I was fragile. You thought I would panic. But I learned to stay calm and use my mind." The alien warriors recovered, but the human had already analyzed their weaknesses. Every move they made, every strike, every weapon was countered with simple, clever tactics. He did not fight with brute force. He fought with strategy. The Predator's eyes burned with anger. He could not understand this human. He had never faced anyone like him before. Small, seemingly weak, yet calm, clever, and unstoppable. The human ate another snack, completely unbothered by the chaos around him. "You rely on power," he said quietly, "but sometimes brains and patience are stronger." The predator roared, signaling the next wave of warriors. The arena shook violently. Metal panels bent, sparks flew, and the crowd leaned forward mesmerized. The human faced a new wave without fear. He used every trick he had, turning the warriors' strength against them. One by one, they fell, not with brute force, but with clever maneuvers and precise timing. The predator could only watch, astonished. "This human, he is more than I imagined," he muttered. The human finally took a deep breath and sat down, eating a snack. The arena fell silent, stunned by the unexpected calm of this fragile creature. Then the predator realized the truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were unpredictable. Humans could think, adapt, and remain calm under pressure. And in this moment, he understood that strength alone could not defeat them. The crowd whispered among themselves. "The human, he has a hidden advantage." The human looked up at the predator, smiling faintly. "Are you ready to try again?" he asked. "Because I have a feeling this is going to be fun." The predator's rage mixed with a strange respect. He had been challenged, not by power, but by calmness, cleverness, and human ingenuity. For the first time, he felt uncertain. And that was exactly what the human wanted. The unexpected turning point had become clear. Humans were not what the galaxy expected. Small, fragile, and weak? Perhaps. But clever, calm, and unpredictable? Absolutely. The predator clenched his fists. He had faced warriors from countless worlds, yet none had tested him like this. The human had survived impossible gravity, outsmarted elite warriors, and remained calm throughout. And he had done it while eating snacks. The crowd watched in awe. Aliens whispered to each other, trying to understand. "He is different," one said. "The humans, maybe we underestimated them." The human, finishing his snack, stood up and looked at the predator. Calm, confident, and unbroken. "Ready for the next round?" he asked, smiling faintly. The predator could only growl, his respect hidden beneath layers of rage. He had underestimated humans, and that mistake could cost him everything. The arena fell silent, waiting. Everyone knew the next battle would be even more intense. The human had shown his hidden advantage, patience, cleverness, and calm under pressure. And the predator, he had never faced anything like it before. The arena trembled. The alien crowd was silent, leaning forward, eyes wide with anticipation. Every creature present could feel the tension crackle in the air. The predator, towering and furious, stared at the human who had so casually survived impossible gravity and outsmarted elite warriors. The human, calm and composed, adjusted his bag and took out a snack. He popped it into his mouth, chewing slowly as if nothing unusual was happening. Around him, the arena's metal panels groaned under the strain of the predator's power. Sparks flew, and the air vibrated with energy. The predator stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the human. "I have never faced anyone like you," he growled. "But patience has limits. Strength will prevail." The human smiled faintly, licking crumbs from his fingers. "You rely on power," he said softly, "but I rely on observation." With a roar, the predator raised the arena's gravity to levels never before tested. The floor warped and cracked. The hovering platform shook violently. Even the alien elders had to brace themselves against the vibrations. The human's body pressed the floor, bones straining against the weight. But instead of panic, he focused. He analyzed every tremor, every sound, every pulse of energy. The predator's strength was overwhelming, but the human's mind was sharper. He rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a metal shard that flew from a cracking panel. He reached into his bag and grabbed a small reflective device. With perfect timing, he angled it toward one of the arena's energy emitters. A bright beam bounced off the device, hitting a nearby warrior and knocking him off balance. The crowd gasped. Even the predator's eyes widened. "Impossible," he muttered. The human strategy was clear. He was small, yes, but every move was calculated. He used the arena itself as a weapon. Gravity, panels, sparks, and cracks became tools in his hands. While the predator relied on raw strength, the human relied on intelligence, calm, and ingenuity. The predator summoned more warriors. Faster, stronger, deadlier. They charged like a storm. Plasma blades hummed. Claws scraped. Energy bolts fired. But the human remained calm. He rolled, dodged, and countered with simplicity. A well-timed kick here, a small push there, and another warrior was sent sprawling. The predator's jaw tightened. He had anticipated cleverness, but nothing like this. The human's movements were precise, calm, and almost playful. Yet each action carried devastating consequences for those who underestimated him. The human glanced at the predator, crumbs still on his lips. "You have power," he said softly. "I have patience. Let's see which lasts longer." The predator roared and raised gravity even higher. Sparks flew from the floor, metal twisted under the strain, and the arena groaned. The human pressed his palms to the floor and used the pressure to propel himself forward. A panel cracked beneath him, sending a shockwave that threw a warrior off balance. Another warrior charged, swinging a massive blade, but the human ducked and rolled, then used the blade's momentum to trip him. The predator's face twisted with frustration. He had faced countless warriors, countless strategies, but this human, he had never faced anything like him. The human reached into his bag again. He pulled out a small metallic orb. He threw it to the floor, and it exploded with a blinding light. The arena was bathed in sudden illumination, making the warriors squint. Taking advantage of the distraction, the human rolled between the legs of a massive opponent, kicking him in the back and sending him crashing into the wall. The crowd gasped. Even the alien elders leaned forward. "The human, he is extraordinary," one whispered. The predator's patience had run out. He slammed his clawed hands into the floor, sending a tremor across the arena. Panels lifted into the air like shards of glass. Gravity surged again, pressing down harder than ever. The human's body bent, knees to the ground, arms trembling under the immense weight. And yet, he did not panic. He took a deep breath, analyzing the situation. Every warrior's movement, every crack in the floor, every spark became part of his plan. With calm expression, he activated the orb again. This time, it released a series of small pulses, creating temporary zones where gravity weakened slightly. The human moved into one of these zones, lifting his body with ease while the warrior struggled in the crushing weight outside the pulse. The predator's eyes widened in disbelief. He is controlling it," he muttered. The human smiled faintly. "Sometimes the smartest move is to adapt to your enemy's strength," he said. "You want to crush me? Fine. I'll use your strength against you." The warriors faltered. Their attacks became chaotic, uncoordinated. The human exploited every opening, using gravity, panels, and his clever devices. One by one, they fell, not through brute force, but through ingenuity and calm thinking. The predator roared, signaling the arena to raise the gravity to the absolute maximum. Sparks flew, panels cracked, and the floor groaned violently. The human sank to the ground, knees pressing into the metal. Every breath was a struggle. Every movement was painful. And yet he smiled. The predator, furious and desperate, lunged with a massive strike. The human rolled under blow, grabbing a nearby panel and using it as a shield. The strike glanced off harmlessly, and the predator staggered. The human stood upright, calm and composed, chewing a snack. "You rely on strength," he said quietly, "but patience and cleverness win battles you cannot imagine." The predator's eyes blazed with anger. He had underestimated this human, and now he realized the truth. Raw strength alone was not enough. Intelligence, observation, and calm could match, and even surpass, his power. The alien crowd murmured among themselves. "The human, he is extraordinary," one said. "We misjudge them." The human, still calm, activated another device from his bag. It created a small energy field around him, deflecting attacks and giving him mobility. He moved gracefully, almost playfully, dodging attacks and countering with minimal effort. The predator's warriors were defeated, one after another, not through sheer force, but through clever tactics and calm strategy. The predator himself was forced to step back, watching in disbelief as the human survived impossible odds. Finally, the human stood in the center of the arena, calm, composed, and unbroken. He took a deep breath and smiled faintly. Not bad, he said, but I think it's time for the real test. The Predator's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The human reached into his bag one last time. He pulled out a small device, sleek and metallic, and pressed a button. The arena's gravity field faltered, panels shifted, and sparks flew. The Predator staggered, struggling to regain control. The human's hidden advantage had turned the arena itself into a tool against him. The alien crowd gasped. Even the Predator's face showed a mix of anger and respect. The human, calm and composed, looked at the Predator. Sometimes the greatest strength is patience and cleverness, he said softly. You thought power alone would win, but it doesn't. The Predator clenched his fists. Rage boiled inside him. He had faced the strongest warriors across the galaxy, yet none had challenged him like this. The human had survived impossible gravity, outsmarted elite warriors, and turned the arena itself against him, all while eating snacks. The crowd erupted in awe and disbelief. The aliens whispered to each other, trying to understand this tiny, clever human who had survived the impossible. The human, finally, took a deep breath and sat down, eating a snack. The arena fell silent, stunned by the unexpected calm and ingenuity of this fragile creature. And that was the Predator's ultimate test. For the first time, he realized that strength alone could not defeat the human. Intelligence, patience, and calm, simple human traits, had turned the impossible into reality. The arena waited, tense and silent, knowing the next battle would be even more dangerous. The human had survived, but the Predator was far from defeated. And the human, he had only just begun. The arena was trembling like never before. Sparks flew from twisted metal. Gravity pulses shook the platforms, and a crowd of aliens gasped at every trembling step. The Predator, towering and furious, had already unleashed the maximum gravity the arena could generate. Panels bent, the floor cracked, and every movement of the human seemed impossible. And yet, he stood. The human's face was calm. His small frame was pressed against the warped floor, but his eyes remained sharp. Around him, sparks flew, panels cracked, and the alien warriors, those who had survived earlier, charged again. Each move was designed to crush him, yet he anticipated them all. The Predator roared, shaking the arena with his anger. Enough, he bellowed. I will end this now. He slammed his massive hand into the floor. The gravity field surged to levels beyond imagination. The human groaned under the pressure. His arms pressed the floor, knees bent, teeth clenched. Every part of his body screamed under the weight. Yet, even now, he remained conscious, his mind sharp, calculating every possibility. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small metallic device. It was sleek, simple, and unassuming. The Predator noticed it, narrowing his glowing eyes. What is that? He demanded. The human smiled faintly. Just a little trick I picked up on Earth, he said. He pressed a button. Suddenly, the arena lurched. Gravity faltered for a split second. Sparks shot into the air. Panels twisted and bent, throwing the alien warriors off balance. Then gravity reversed. The Predator stumbled, his massive body pressed against the airless pull, floating uncontrollably. The warriors screamed, flying into walls or each other. Panels clanged as they spun through the air. The arena, once dominated by crushing pressure, became chaotic, totally under the human's control. The human stood upright. He looked around calmly, chewing a snack as if nothing unusual had happened. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Aliens whispered in stunned tones. The human, he controls gravity? The Predator struggled to regain balance, rage twisting his features. Impossible, he growled. Gravity should obey me. The human tilted his head, smiling faintly. Sometimes you don't fight gravity, you guide it, he said. You thought pressure would crush me, but you forgot one thing. I adapt. He stepped forward, each movement precise, controlled, and effortless. The warriors around him struggled to regain balance, but every motion of the human was deliberate. He wasn't just surviving, he was dominating. Every panel, every spike of energy, every shift in the arena became a tool in his hands. The Predator tried to attack, but his massive strikes were misjudged in the reverse gravity. He stumbled, hitting a panel that cracked and fell. The human sidestepped and let the panel continue its arc, slamming into another warrior. Chaos erupted. The human's calm and cleverness stunned the entire arena. He had turned a seemingly impossible situation into a battlefield where he controlled every element. Gravity, the very weapon meant to crush him, was now his ally. The alien crowd whispered frantically, "This human, he is not just clever. He is unstoppable." The human reached into his bag again. This time, he pulled out a small orb, glowing faintly. He pressed a button, and the orb sent pulses through the arena, stabilizing sections of the floor just for him. The predator and his warriors struggled in the unstable environment, while the human moved freely, hopping over cracks, ducking under panels, and turning every attack against them. "Impressive," he said softly, munching another snack. "But let's see how you handle this." He activated a second orb. Gravity pulsed rhythmically, controlled by his hands and devices. The predator and the remaining warriors found themselves caught in a disorienting dance. Gravity pushed them down one moment, lifted them the next. They flailed, stumbled, and crashed. The human, calm as ever, weaved through the chaos, dodging, countering, and controlling the battlefield without ever raising his voice. The predator's rage boiled over. He raised a clawed hand and unleashed an energy wave, hoping to crush the human outright. But the human anticipated it. He dodged, rolling along a gravity pulse, and redirected the energy using a reflective panel. The wave slammed into the floor, sending shards flying into the alien warriors, knocking several unconscious. The crowd erupted in awe. Even the elders were leaning forward, whispering, "He has mastered the arena itself." The predator growled, more frustrated than ever. "How can this tiny creature dominate me?" he demanded. His pride, his experience, his unmatched strength, all were being undone by a human who was smaller, weaker, and yet smarter. The human smiled faintly. "You rely on power," he said. "I rely on adaptability. Strength is useless if it cannot change with the situation." He stepped forward, using the gravity pulses to his advantage. Panels shifted, energy blasts were deflected, and the remaining warriors were thrown into disarray. One by one they fell, not through brute force, but through clever strategy and precise timing. The predator tried to regain control. He slammed a hand into the floor, attempting to restore the original gravity. Sparks flew. The arena shook violently. But the human had anticipated it. He activated a final orb, reversing the gravity entirely and stabilizing a path for himself. The predator and warriors were now at the mercy of the humans. Control. The human calmly walked forward, chewing a snack, eyes locked on the predator. "I guess the turning point is clear," he said softly. Brains and calmness went against raw power every time. The predator's massive frame trembled with fury. He had never faced anyone who could not only survive his greatest attacks, but also dominate the battlefield using simple intelligence and calm. He had underestimated humans, and that mistake could cost him everything. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Whispers filled the arena. "This human, he is not ordinary. He is clever, calm, and unstoppable." The human reached the center of the arena. He stopped, placing his snack down. Gravity shifted with a gentle pulse, controlled by his devices. The predator, massive and furious, stood before him, every muscle tensed, every weapon ready. Yet he was forced to acknowledge the truth. The human had turned the impossible into his advantage. "You relied on fear and pressure," the human said softly. "But I remain calm. I adapt. I survive. And in the end, I control the battlefield." The predator's eyes blazed, respect and fury clashing. He had never met a being like this. Small, fragile human, but clever, calm, and unstoppable. The arena fell silent. The gravity stabilized, controlled entirely by the human. The crowd of aliens stared, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The turning point was complete. The human had survived impossible odds, outsmarted elite warriors, and now controlled the arena itself. The predator clenched his fists. Rage and respect collided in his mind. He had underestimated humans, and now he understood the danger of that mistake. The human, finally, sat down, calm and composed, eating his snack. Sparks danced around the arena, panels shifted gently. But nothing could harm him. He had proven that cleverness, patience, and adaptability were more powerful than raw strength. And for the first time, the Predator realized he was not facing just a human. He was facing an entirely new kind of warrior, small, fragile, and yet unstoppable. The arena waited. Every alien present knew that the final battle would be even more intense. The human had survived, outsmarted, and dominated. The Predator's next move would be desperate. And the human, he was ready. The arena was silent, almost holding its breath. Sparks still danced from broken panels. Gravity pulses hummed, controlled entirely by the human. The Predator, towering and furious, stood before him, muscles tense, claws flexed. His eyes glowed with a mix of rage and respect. For the first time, he realized the truth. He was facing not just a human, but a master of calm, strategy, and ingenuity. A fragile creature who had survived impossible odds, outsmarted elite warriors, and now controlled the battlefield itself. The human chewed his final snack. Calm and collected, he placed the empty packet back in his bag. "You wanted power to crush me," he said softly. "But I used patience, cleverness, and observation. Let's finish this." The Predator roared. He raised gravity to a level that threatened to tear the arena apart. Sparks flew, panels twisted, and the remaining warriors braced themselves. Yet, the human did not move. He simply observed, calculating every detail, every pulse, every weak point in the environment. The Predator's first strike was sudden. His massive claw swung down like a hammer, aiming to crush the human. The human rolled, letting the claw smash into floor. The metal panel cracked and bent, and the Predator staggered, surprised by the human's agility. The crowd gasped. Aliens whispered to each other. He moves as if the arena itself is part of him. The human smiled faintly. "You rely on strength," he said quietly. "I rely on strategy." The Predator summoned a wave of elite warriors, the last of his forces. They charged simultaneously, claws, plasma, and blades aimed at the human. But he had already calculated their timing. Using the gravity pulses and reflective panels, he redirected attacks, tripped warriors with precise kicks, and used their own momentum against them. One warrior lunged, swinging a massive blade. The human sidestepped, letting the warrior crash into another, sending both flying. Another fired a plasma shot. The human deflected it with a reflective panel, sending the energy bolt into the floor, creating sparks that blinded two more warriors. The arena was silent, almost holding its breath. Sparks still danced from broken panels. Gravity pulses hummed, controlled entirely by the human. The Predator, towering and furious, stood before him, muscles tense, claws flexed. His eyes glowed with a mix of rage and respect. For the first time, he realized the truth. He was facing not just a human, but a master of calm, strategy, and ingenuity. A fragile creature who had survived impossible odds, outsmarted elite warriors, and now controlled the battlefield itself. The human chewed his final snack. Calm and collected, he placed the empty packet back in his bag. "You wanted power to crush me," he said softly. "But I used patience, cleverness, and observation. Let's finish this." The Predator roared. He raised gravity to a level that threatened to tear the arena apart. Sparks flew, panels twisted, and the remaining warriors braced themselves. Yet the human did not move. He simply observed, calculating every detail, every pulse, every weak point in the environment. The Predator's first strike was sudden. His massive claw swung down like a hammer, aiming to crush the human. The human rolled, letting the claw smash into the floor. The metal panel cracked and bent, and the Predator staggered, surprised by the human's agility. The crowd gasped. Aliens whispered to each other. He moves as if the arena itself is part of him. The human smiled faintly. "You rely on strength," he said quietly. "I rely on strategy." The Predator summoned a wave of elite warriors, the last of his forces. They charged simultaneously, claws, plasma, and blades aimed at the human. But he had already calculated their timing. Using the gravity pulses and reflective panels, he redirected attacks, tripped warriors with precise kicks, and used their own momentum against them. One warrior lunged, swinging a massive blade. The human sidestepped, letting the warrior crash into another, sending both flying. Another fired a plasma shot. The human deflected it with a reflective panel, sending the energy bolt into the floor, creating sparks that blinded two more warriors. He rolled under a massive strike, then used a fallen panel to block another. Gravity pulses push him into position, and he kicked a warrior into the predator himself. Chaos erupted. The predator staggered, struggling to regain balance, while the human moved calmly, controlled, and precise. The crowd was on the edge of their seats. Aliens whispered urgently. He might actually win, one said. The humans, they're more than we thought. The human reached into his bag one last time. He pulled out a final device, sleek, metallic, and unassuming. He pressed a button. Gravity reversed again, but this time he controlled it completely. The predator and warriors were flung into disarray. Panels shifted violently, metal twisted, and sparks flew everywhere. The human moved forward, step by step, calm and deliberate. Each footstep was perfectly timed, each movement calculated. He dodged attacks, countered, and used the arena itself as a weapon. Gravity, which had been his enemy, was now entirely under his control. The predator roared, swinging his massive claws in desperation. The human rolled between his legs, used the predator's own strength against him, and kicked him backward. The predator slammed into a panel, sending it crashing to the floor. Sparks exploded, and the remaining warriors fell, defeated by cleverness rather than force. The human finally stood before the predator, calm, composed, and victorious. He took a deep breath and chewed a final snack. The arena fell silent. Every alien present stared in disbelief. You relied on power, the human said softly. I relied on calm, cleverness, and patience. That is how I survive. That is how I win. The predator, massive and furious, froze. Rage and respect warred in his glowing eyes. He had faced countless warriors, yet none had challenged him like this. None had survived impossible gravity, outsmarted elite warriors, and turned the battlefield against him. He lowered his claws slightly. For the first time, he realized humans were not weak. Small, fragile, yes, but clever, adaptable, and calm under pressure. Truly dangerous. The alien crowd erupted, not in fear, but in awe. Aliens whispered urgently, the human, he is extraordinary, a true warrior. The human sat down calmly, placing the empty snack packet aside. Sparks and gravity pulses continued around him, but he remained unbothered. He looked at the predator, smiling faintly. Are you done? He asked softly. Or shall we continue? The predator's massive frame trembled. Rage, frustration, and an unfamiliar feeling, respect, collided inside him. He had underestimated humans, and that mistake could have cost him everything. He growled deeply, then stepped back. His massive claws flexed, but he made no further attack. The human had proven his point. Strength alone could not defeat intelligence, patience, and calm. The alien elders nodded in agreement. This is remarkable, one said softly. Humans are not what we believed. The human stood up, brushing off dust and looking around the arena. He had survived impossible odds. He had outsmarted the most powerful alien in the galaxy, and he had done it calmly, strategically, and with patience. The predator finally stepped back, lowering his head in a gesture that could almost be called respect. The crowd murmured. Aliens whispered. The human, he has shown us the power of his species. The human smiled faintly. It seems the galaxy has more to learn about humans, he said softly. We are small, yes, but clever, calm, and unstoppable when needed. The arena erupted in applause, not from cheering, but from awe. The predator's warriors who had survived stared in disbelief. Even the alien elders were leaning forward, nodding with respect. The human placed a final snack into his mouth and sat down calmly. Sparks danced around the arena, panels shifted slightly, but he was untouched. He had shown the galaxy that raw power alone was meaningless without cleverness, calm, and adaptability. For the predator, it was a humbling moment. He had underestimated a human. He had assumed strength would dominate, but he was wrong. And for the human, it was another quiet victory. Small, calm, clever, and victorious. The ultimate turning point had been achieved. The arena remained tense. The gravity pulses stabilized under the human's control. He looked at the predator one last time. Remember this, he said softly. Brains over brawn. Calm over chaos. Patience over fear. That is how humans survive. That is how we win. The predator could only nod slightly, a silent acknowledgement of defeat. Not by strength, but by intelligence and calm. The crowd erupted into shocked applause. The humans, small and underestimated, had claimed victory. The galaxy would never forget this moment. And the human, he simply sat down, chewed his last snack, and smiled, calm, composed, and unstoppable. The final showdown was over, and humanity had won, not by strength, but by ingenuity, patience, and the courage to remain calm under impossible pressure.